All right. Welcome to our city council meeting for today, October 2nd, 2019. I don't see, microphone's not really working. Is there anyone here from the Community Presbyterian Church for the invocation? Didn't see anyone. Then we will have an invocation by Councilman Phillips and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Isom.
Thank you, Mayor. Our gracious Father, as we come before you this evening in this meeting, we ask that your guidance will be with us as we contemplate the responsibilities of this great city. We ask that you watch over us in all of our processes. We ask that all of us be understanding and respectful of each other and their opinions. We ask that you watch over our first responders, those who care for us each and every day. We thank you, Father, for the beautiful season we're having and for the colors that surround us in this beautiful place. We ask that you will watch over us in all of our dealings, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Let's all join together and pledge allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We need to excuse Councilwoman Hartley this evening. She will not be with us. And with that, we will go to our agenda order approval. Are there any items this council would like changed?
Move to approve the agenda order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll go to council business.
Mayor, I just wanted to once again remind everyone and encourage anyone who wishes to participate. This Saturday morning from 9 to noon, we're going to be decorating the downtown historic area for the harvest. And we've got a number of volunteers, but we're always looking for more volunteers. Tom's helped us a couple of times and much appreciated. We think we have all of the supplies necessary, except we're asking people to bring a pair of gloves, and if they have any wire cutters, that would be great. But other than that, I think we're pretty much set. This Saturday from 9 to noon, and we'll be meeting right out here by the Caldwell Banker building in the parking lot there. The other thing that I wanted to ask about, and it's more a question, I know today that all of us received an email message regarding the new walking trail that will be going around the lake and the hills. And I'm just not aware of exactly what the master plan. I'm fully aware that this is happening, but there's some concerned neighbors there. And I don't know if you got it at all, Mayor or Mr. Bittman, but I was wondering if maybe, Kenny, you could talk to us a little bit about how the design was planned of where it's going. I think it's a great thing, by the way. I just want to know how we came about the path that we're using.
Kenny Nelson, Leisure Services Director. So the path will run along the already established dike, and then it goes a path down through the parking lot on the west side to Cove Drive. So that will be our connector to future trails.
Right.
And then the trail goes around from there up along the north side and around against the fence on the east side and makes a loop to connect all the way around the lake.
And when you say against the fence, how close is it to the fence and how does that impact the neighbors there?
The fence on the north side is at least 40 feet. Isn't that right, Kit?
I don't think it's quite 40, but
It's
it's right around 40 feet.
The original plan was like 10 or 12 feet. And we had a discussion with the neighbors, and through Kit's office, we were able to move that a considerable distance away without affecting any ADA slope or any of those things. So we still have that gradual slope that we need, and then we're able to take it around the east side.
What's going to happen in that 20 or 30 feet? Will it just be left natural or is it planned for other things?
Correct. Just natural, just
Okay.
like all our other trails.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to have some idea because I want to be able to get back to this couple, because I think we all got the same email and wanted to respond to her about that there was. And I don't know if you've spoken to the neighbors not about this, but
I've spoken to the Baumans about moving it from the close proximity that we had originally to extending it out. I haven't spoken to anybody by email about their concerns currently.
I'll just share with you the email afterwards and we can
Okay.
talk about it. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. That's all I have.
Is there anything?
I had a request today that we look at painting lines on the road from Westview, on Westview Drive, from the farm to the old Highway 91. Is that something we can look at doing?
Like striping it?
Mhm.
So right now it's
It's just regular
just
road.
asphalt.
Yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. it is.
Is it? I haven't noticed.
Are there any other comments? Okay, then we will move on to our staff comment with Darren.
But
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
Cousins, was that from the farm to Highway 56?
I got a message and it just said the farm. I assume SU farm,
Yeah.
right?
Over
To
to 56?
well,
No,
no,
to
to Highway
91.
91 the other way toward
Over by
yeah,
Hamilton
South.
Fort.
to the south. Yeah, I assume that's what he's right.
Yeah.
Old Highway 91's
So it's striped pretty much up to there through Hidden Hills.
down by Hamilton Fort, right?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Good evening, council, mayor, and staff. Darren Adams from the police department. We're here tonight to swear in a new corporal with the unfortunate departure of Corporal Addison Adams. He left us for Parowan. It necessitated us filling that role. It's always exciting to watch these young men develop and grow and prepare themselves, and it couldn't be more true with Corporal Brian Moore. He did a wonderful job on the selection assessment and has proved and shown that he is suited well for this job, and we're excited. So we're going to ask him to come up and share a little bit, whatever his heart desires, talk about his family briefly, and then we'll do the swearing, and his wife will pin him. And she did ask me if it was okay if we drew blood. I know that we joke about that, but that's the first request I've had.
That's why I've got a bulletproof vest on.
Good evening, Brian Moore, with the Cedar Police Department. We'll start off with my family. So sitting next to me is my wife, Tiffany. Got my 3 kids, Peyton, Ryden, and Boston. Second row, I got my father, who's works for the Garfield County Sheriff's Office, been with them for over 30 years, K-9 handler for 28 years, which is why it's driving me to become a K-9 handler as well. Next to him, my mother, Deanna. Next to him, Grandma Lavenda. Row behind them, I got my brother, Mitchell. And he's been in the Army for quite some time, 3 tours to Iraq. Brother Wyatt, sister Cherish. Behind them, I got my uncle Brent, who's with juvenile probation, and my cousin Aaron. So
And I thought all these people are here for the council meeting. It's just for you.
big support group.
That's great.
That is wonderful.
And if any of your family wants to come up to get a different angle for pictures or any of that, they are more than welcome.
Come on, Mom.
Your mom does.
It's only going to happen this one time, Mom. Come on.
Come right up here.
Come right up there.
Right up there.
That's what parents do. They have to embarrass their children.
That's
Yeah, he's taking that drum thing serious. He's got his vest on.
you're going to have to go deep to get blood because he's wearing a protective vest. That's great.
Just two other quick things. I just want to let you know that we did receive the traffic radar signs today, the 4 that we had requested, and we're putting those together, and we'll start to deploy those on Friday in various locations. So, and then I just wanted to make sure I have Sergeant Pollock sending out crime stats quarterly, just making sure you don't have any questions on those and that they're interpreted sufficiently.
Thank him for that.
Yeah,
That's
thank-
Crashes are up significantly.
Yes, they are. Unfortunately,
I
it's
suspect due to construction, a
a
lot
big
of it.
part. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other staff comments? No? Okay, wonderful. We'll move on to the public agenda with our public comment portion. If there's anyone here that would like to address the council. Okay, seeing none. We will move on to our business agenda with the public portion with item number 1, public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the general land use plan from low density to high density for property located at approximately 3200 West South Mountain Drive. So, it's like, I don't know which one of you want to come and
Waiting for the screen to come down.
My name's Joel Hansen. I represent the owners here. We come into Planning Commission a couple weeks ago. We had a negative recommendation sent for this zone change. I wanted to go over a couple things I still wanted to bring it to council because, when we look at some of the things that we're trying to do, I think there was some misconception that we were going to not develop it if we didn't get to do this. This property is currently zoned R1. It's about 45 acres. You can get about 3 units an acre. And that's really for us, for as much work as we've done and time as we've spent and money we've spent out here in this area, that is absolutely not what we're trying to do. The only reason we've asked for an R3 zone out here is to have some shared wall, single level units, not apartments. I personally have spent 16 years working on this area to make it a nice place in Cedar City. I want to maintain it that way, and there's no way I'm going to allow something like that to happen. One of the things I'd like to talk about as well is we talked about a little bit in Planning Commission. We'd be willing to put together a deed restriction. I've had a title company put that together with some of the things that we're willing to do. The density on this project is less dense than it would be as R1 for what we're asking for. Again, I can't stress enough how much the reason we want to do what we want to do on this parcel is because it fits that piece of property. It'll be a way for us to develop it and have the minimal impact on the neighbors, everybody around it, on the view of everybody around there, including the parcel that we're doing right here. I know people get really worried about R3 and the density of R3 and what it can do. That's why we've approached it with the deed restriction. Even if I was to sell this property, which I don't plan on ever selling it, if we did, the deed restriction is the one thing I would make sure that it had, because I don't want somebody to come in there and put multi-story units anywhere in there. If you look at some of the work we've done out here, we have the residential estates here that we changed from R1. That's going to be this entire parcel here. We've just extended all the utilities down that road. We actually changed the density on that zoning from R1 to RE, which is less dense because that's what fits that particular parcel. We've had this commercial piece out here along I-15 that if we were interested in building apartments or something in we could have done that a long time ago, but that's not it. And when we brought that in for zone change, we brought that in with the understanding that it would be neighborhood commercial at some point in time. And it won't be anything different than that, because I don't want to see, my work go down the toilet for $1 in this neighborhood. This is a very nice neighborhood. And in my opinion, it is one of the nicest areas in Cedar City. And I want to see it stay that way. I want to see it stay that way all the way down in the quality of development we do. Eagle Ridge, the people that had such a problem with it during the planning commission, you know, I have to say again, that was our one, and that was our design. We used the same engineer to design Eagle Ridge and bring it through final plat that we used to do the state piece right here. If we were looking for density and to do that kind of stuff, we wouldn't be interested in a deed restriction and a height restriction and a total number of unit restrictions that we can record. And I have that ready and prepared to do.
Did you make the same argument to the planning commission?
No, I haven't made all these same arguments. to
You
the
didn't bring
planning
it up
commission.
in the meeting with planning commission?
The deed restriction thing?
Yes.
No, that's something I've done since
Not
then.
even on the table then.
So
Mr.
Now,
Hanson, what is,
you had a schematic of.
I did,
you
and I
did.
don't have it right now.
Okay.
I apologize.
I think that would be of help. to-
Sure.
yeah,
to
but
the
my
council,
question
too,
was, you
because
talked
it's-
about your plan. What is the plan?
Okay, so what I would like to do up here is I would like to come off this road and I'm gonna come down to about here. What I would like to do is put a U-shaped road on there and I can only get to about here with it. The remaining property will be all left open space. It will be an HOA that will be owned by the property owners there. I don't intend to cut down any of the trees. The fewer trees I cut down, the better. But the reason I'm asking for the R3 is so that I can cluster some of the density together. Maybe even some single level shared wall units on the interior of the project. And then some smaller units on the exterior of the project. We've talked a lot about this ridge line here. We don't want to put anything clear out on the ridge that'll be obtrusive to all the rest of it, all this property and all of this. That's why we have a height restriction in there. We'd like to keep them back off the ridge a little bit and make it a really nice area. It's not going to be, even if they are shared wall units, there won't be any entry level.
Who is
places.
your target market?
Target market is going to be second family, retirees, empty nesters, those kind of people. I live in a condo now and I don't know that I ever want to build a house, to be honest with you, even though I have a lot picked out right there. The more I think about it and look at it, the more I like this condo idea for me too. So that would be my target market.
When you talk about not doing anything to the property, are you talking to the property to the east?
No, this, okay.
After you
So
build a U-shaped road and build your
Yep.
development.
around it in here,
Yeah.
but a lot of this I can't use, you know.
Too steep?
Yeah, it's too steep. And like out here on the ridges on this east side, you've got a 25, 30-foot drop to go from the top of this ridge to the bottom. It's quite a bit bigger than you think. We have a big ridge that runs off this side right here as well. We don't want to use those. Those will be, and for drainage complications that we have, we can only come back down this far. One of the things we have toyed around with is actually, we would like to be able to give a piece of this right here on the corner, right on the tip of the ridge for an art studio for SUU. Because if you go look at it and you stand there and look at it, the views of Schertz Canyon that change all day, every day, it would be a great place. One of the difficulties I'm having is public access through private streets, through the HOA and a few things like that. So,
So how many units are you planning in this development?
in the deed restriction, I've put 130. I don't believe we'll be able to get that many. I think we're going to be closer to 120. And
what lot size are you looking at?
some shared wall units and then some smaller lot size. The objective here with the smaller lot size is to be able to give somebody a building pad to build their house and then leave as much of it totally natural open space as we can. That's one of the reasons why we're pushing for the lower lot size, the smaller lot size, so that we can leave it natural scape. We have a 25% requirement in open space in this development here for every lot.
You'll have street lights out there?
Probably not.
Can I ask
I think
legal-
go ahead.
Can I ask legal counsel? I mean, the proposed or the trial balloon for a deed restriction?
Yeah,
Tell
so,
me how that,
right, so with the deed restriction, Mr. Hansen has the legal ability to put that on his property. He also has the legal ability to remove that from his property. It's as good as long as he's on that same page. My concern with it is if you look at that deed restriction, it's put in the benefit of Cedar City Corporation. So my hesitation, I've expressed this, I can't remember if it was to Joel or Dallas, was just that the citizens, if this deed restriction is violated, the citizens are going to come to the city to enforce it. And I just don't know if we want to get ourselves in that position of dictating how a private property owner owns their property.
We had, so a long time ago over on Amy Avenue, you guys all know where Amy Avenue is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was probably 20 years plus, but that developer out there, the minutes we have say they tried to do a deed restriction. I don't know if they ever recorded it or if they recorded it and removed it. But once the apartments started to, and the condos started to be developed in that area, the residents put a lot of pressure on the city to enforce a deed restriction, which we don't have any enforcement rights in to begin with. So it was very uncomfortable from the city standpoint to have that there, not be able to do anything with it, but have the expectation in all the neighbors' minds that we were going to enforce this private contract. That was a very uncomfortable position to be in.
So how is this, if I can ask him a quick question, how would this be different than recording CC&Rs for a project where it's a deed restriction?
We don't control CC.
CC&Rs are essentially a deed restriction, but that's a private, we as a government entity don't have any say in the CC&Rs. We have nothing to do with them.
So that's something we'd be willing to work on and have changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So we're okay with that.
Changed to, I don't,
It would be up to the HOA to
Right.
to
To
take
enforce it.
action to enforce those restrictions
Okay.
in the CC&Rs.
Then it leaves the city out of it.
So I want to continue my concern about streetlights out
Sure.
there, and whether it's standard streetlights or something else. There's a lot of discussion about the growth on the south end of town and the need eventually for a firehouse down in that part of town somewhere. I'm just concerned, and we have issues around other parts of the city where you can't find people's homes. You can't see addresses on their houses.
Right.
I'm just concerned about how we would address that kind of situation on any development that goes out there.
So what we've done is on the top of this ridge here, and this is us having a discussion. This is what my thoughts is. My thoughts
fine.
are,
This is a work meeting.
yep, my thoughts are to put streetlights out there, you'd have a lot of visual pollution at night from all the
I understand.
adjoining areas. But I do believe there's some lighting we can use that is the lower lighting that maybe shines from the ground up for the street signs and for the addresses.
Yeah.
And I like that. That's the only reason why we haven't put streetlights in here. I do plan on, when we come back and develop all of this on South Mountain Drive, I do actually plan to put nice decorative streetlights all the way down that.
Well, I do think that something like that absolutely has to happen, or
Yeah.
our first responders can't respond.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
Did you look at the R3 single family zone?
No. What's the difference? Is it just allow you to not have shared wall dwellings? Is that the only difference?
I don't know about the shared wall, but it allows for smaller lot sizes on single family residence. I don't know on the shared wall aspect,
Yeah.
but that might calm some fears that it's going to be developed in apartments because it does not allow apartments.
The R3 single family,
Yeah.
Right.
It's not set up for that. It's just set up to have
smaller lot sizes.
smaller lot sizes. I don't know about the shared wall.
So I'm interested, just
You
in full disclosure here. When you had this property, you knew it was zoned R1. So we're coming back now because you've had a change of heart, or what?
To be completely honest with you, what I do, it took me about 3 years to figure out what to do with this piece of property here. And I think what we've finally used it for and the layout and the plan we have of it,
Mhm.
that's why we changed it to RE, fits that piece of property. I feel very strongly about this piece of property being the same way. That's the only reason that I'm asking for the zone change, is to be able to build a product that works well with that specific piece of property. I mean, I could leave it R1, and then you're going to have 30-foot houses all over the top of this. That's going to ruin everybody's view from everywhere. And I don't want that. You know, if I left it in estate lots, that whole thing is going to get leveled, and it's a beautiful property out there. We've spent a lot of money and time in developing this whole area and the infrastructure going in out here. And we would just like to be able to continue to develop out there. That's all. And I do feel very strongly that doing what we want to do out there, as painful as it might be for some people to understand, is the right way to use that property. I do. So, and I've done a lot of research, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, professionals in the business.
So just, I don't understand why you didn't make these same arguments in planning commission. Weren't you not prepared to, or have you just?
The only argument I didn't make in planning commission, I think, is the aspect of the deed restriction that was an idea that I had to be able to give people additional assurances. Yeah. And you know, none of my arguments have changed since.
But the argument of the height and everything, that was all brought up.
Yeah.
Of the structures.
I think the main problem we ran into in planning commission, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was not having to change it to R3 and then have me turn around and sell it and somebody come and build apartments.
Right.
That was the main
Because that's
concern
happened
that I
before in the
understood.
community.
And I understand that. One of the things you have to understand also, though, we own a significant amount of property out here that we have a lot of years to develop. And that's not, we've bought this property over 16 years ago. We're not going to lose it and sell it to somebody to come and build apartments on it and ruin the entire investment that we have in the rest of the property that goes all the way to Westview.
Is your intent on creating the U-shaped road just so you only have one way in, one way out on both exit onto South Mountain Drive? There's no other plan for other access road?
Nope, just that one.
Because I'm concerned about what it does to traffic coming into Eagle Ridge.
Right.
You know, because we already have a lot of traffic coming into Eagle Ridge through that way.
Okay, so we have an entrance right here that goes into the estates.
Right.
Goes to the north.
Mm-hmm.
Just since you brought it up, my thought is that this whole stretch of road from here in needs to go to 25. Now that we have a residential access coming off South Mountain Drive.
Could you show the boundaries again with your pen, with your mark highlighted?
What, of which piece?
The property you're talking?
This one.
Oh, okay.
Right here.
All right.
Yep.
Are there any other questions right now from the council?
I have a question.
Sure.
Not to put Craig on the spot, but does this, I mean, how he explained this tonight change anything for you?
Well,
based on your experience in the planning commission?
I will say it's a crisper presentation. We were
Thank you.
digging and delving during the commission, and the concern about changing a zone,
Mhm.
prospect of it being sold and being developed other than what is presented was a big concern.
Sure. And it
And rightly
should be.
so.
And that's,
Yep.
and so that,
So you're saying
I
you
think
wouldn't
that's-
cut your nose off to spite your face? I mean, you're not going to destroy your own surrounding.
And it would destroy my values to have apartments on that ridge. And we've been at it a long time, and we have significant investment in here.
But if you did deed restrictions enforced by the HOA, we still have no guarantees, right? I mean,
You
is that?
can put all those things in the CCNRs.
And that's something that I've spoke with Tyler about that we would definitely do.
And CCNRs are binding. There's also usually a way to amend CCNRs. So there's not like there's never going to be 100% guarantee, but they are. Yeah. Joel, if you'd like, if you could forward me that concept layout that you,
Yes.
and then I can forward that to the city council.
Will
them to
do.
review.
one more thing that I think
You
was
bet.
noteworthy from the discussion at the planning commission. We know we need different types of housing and more affordable housing, quite frankly. And that was a point that was raised that I think is a valid point. And
Yeah, but I don't think this is going to be more affordable housing. At least I don't think that's your whole intent. If it's somebody's second home, it's not going to be a little fixer upper.
No,
No.
it's, but they're going to be smaller. So the price point will be less than what you can buy in the Estates or in Eagle Ridge or something. Yes, because it's a smaller place, but not necessarily smaller in quality.
and that was a concern.
Yeah.
If you leave it natural, you don't have a yard to take care of, which is really appealing to a lot of people.
It is to me.
Appealing to me.
You can't retroactively
Every
do
day.
that.
Are there any other questions before we open our public hearing?
Not right now.
Okay, then we will open the public hearing on this item if there's anyone that would like to address the council. Okay,
Where are all those neighbors?
Did they lose track of this?
They might have.
seeing no one,
Not complaining.
we will close the public hearing. Is there any other comments from council? We'll move this to our action agenda then.
No, I really want to see the design.
Okay, item number 2, public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the zone from R1 to R3-M for property located at approximately 3200 West South Mountain Drive.
Same thing, different. number.
Same, yeah, this is second portion.
No,
Are there
I
any new
understand.
questions from the council?
No new questions.
Okay, then we'll open the public hearing on this item. And there is still no one, so we'll close the public hearing and move this to our action agenda.
Can you get us a schematic? And at least what you shared with us? That would be of help. Okay, thank you.
And you'll just send that to Tyler? Perfect. Okay, item number 3, consider an ordinance amending the access requirement for city subdivisions.
Dallas Buckner, Go Civil. So this is one we've been working on with Tyler. If we could pull the ordinance up that we're talking about.
Oops.
I think it's the wrong one.
That's it. Yeah, that's fences.
Hey, all
That's
right.
the masonry fence one.
Yeah.
That's fences.
The whole one is fences.
So I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it up, but essentially what the ordinance currently says is if you're going to put a subdivision in the city, it has to access a dedicated paved city street or state highway. So with the subdivision that Dallas is working on with Mr. Meisner, phase 1 would access a paved county road. And then phase 2 would eventually access Westview. So we kind of went back and forth on what was best for both parties. Mr. Meisner thought about de-annexing. He went to the county. The county, through Commissioner Alma Adams and Mr. Erickson, they communicate to the city, hey, we don't want to get in the business of subdivisions. If they're bordering the city, we want them in the city. And so the next thought was, well, does it harm the city to change the ordinance? So the suggestion would be a subdivision just has to have access to a dedicated paved street. So whether that's city
or
county,
county
or state.
Seems logical, doesn't it?
So does it harm the city? I mean, I hear all the time that the county doesn't build to the same standards and they have different requirements. I hear that all the time. So I'm sorry, but that's what I hear.
Right.
They do, and that's true.
The counties made sure that it was clear that we were free to access their streets. They would prefer to have it that way than have subdivisions de-annexing into them. We could also put together an agreement with the county that says you're not going to require us to participate in any maintenance
Road improvements.
for those streets that we commonly use.
They haven't even, but county representatives haven't requested anything like that from us, any maintenance contribution or anything. Yes, the county has different standards. Yes, the county allows borrow pits instead of curb gutter and sidewalk. And yes, they might have different widths on their roads, but their roads as they currently exist in that area are wide enough to get our emergency services and our snow plows and garbage trucks through. So it shouldn't be a problem.
Right. Are there any other comments, questions?
No.
Okay. This one will go on the action agenda.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to our staff portion with item number 4, consider bids for the golf course front 9 irrigation system contractor.
So it says Jared Barnes. Is he,
Jared, you want to come up? Steve Carter, golf course superintendent.
Hey, thanks. I was waiting.
Yeah, I was gonna get reminded. We put out to bid, as you can see in your packets, for a contractor to come and put in our irrigation system for the front 9, number 10 in the driving range. And as you can see from the bids, we had 4 interested contractors. They ranged from the highest at $784,900 down to $699,640. We're here tonight to recommend that we go with Heritage Links, which is the $699,640. And the reason why is because that we did our research and made some phone calls. One of the courses that we called was in Colorado, and the name escapes me at the moment, but it was a 45-hole course. The project that Heritage Links did for them was in a 3-phase project, and they didn't do the first phase, but they got the last 2 phases. And Alan Brown was the superintendent there at the time, and when I talked to him, he had nothing but just great things to say. They're a government-owned golf course. They're doing a similar thing where they bought all the product and worked with that group to get it all installed. And they did that for the same reason we are, which is to save money on the materials. And everything just went really smooth for them. They had really great, as far as changes out on the course when you needed to add or take away things, as long as it was done before they got to that point. They were really, really good about making those changes with no cost. And so also Jim Ruel, our irrigation consultant, recommended them, and also the high bid, which was landscapes. He was like, those 2 groups to him are just a toss up for good groups to work with. And so it just worked out that they were the low bid. So we would recommend for us to go with that group. Are there any questions from the council?
Well, my only question was, I read through all the bids and the bid processes, and they were very complicated.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that all things being equal, we're looking at the same thing from each of the bidders.
We are. It was very specific in the way it was written out, and what was presented by the bidders. And so it's all apples to apples. Everybody was bidding on the exact same material and items.
Great.
like saving $85,000?
Yeah, that is nice.
That's a good deal.
And it fits within our budget as well. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? We good with this going on consent?
When would this take place? When would the construction happen?
So Heritage Link said that they just have fall of 2019. So I think they're able to come in and start, as soon as possible and maybe get some main line in the ground. I don't think they'd be pulling in laterals or anything serious like that, but they could maybe go out and put some main line in so that it would be there for the springtime when they got going. But I think it's probably going to be predominantly a spring project going through about the 1st of June.
And you can keep the course open while they're working?
Yep.
They just have to wear hard hats and
yeah. Well,
protection.
what we can do is and George can, we talked about this a little bit. We'll just close the hole that they're on, make it a par 3, shorten it up, whatever. We can just work around them while they're out going. So
Our public works crews have started digging the pond out already.
Correct.
They're doing a great job. They've got it all grubbed out and they're starting to dig the hole.
yeah, they're really moving along quick on that. So
I just want to thank you for your patience and for your long-range planning and outlook on this. Thank you for that.
thank you for letting us accomplish what we'd like to see happen. It's awesome. It's going to be good.
Be a great course. Well, it's already a great course. Let's make that much better.
So we get this on consent?
Consent.
All right. Item 5, consider bids for the golf course irrigation system materials.
Do I need to restate my name?
Uh-huh.
Steve Carter, golf course superintendent. So there are a couple items in our materials that we need to bring to the council to get approval on because of the cost. One of those was for the HDPE pipe. And as you can see in the material that you had in your packet, there were 5 different people who submitted bids for that. And you can see that WL Plastics, who is a local provider here in town, is going to get us that pipe for $209,942.50, which is a huge savings from even the lowest amount from Scholson, which was $243,487. So that was the first one, is to go with them. And then the second one was with irrigation wire. And as we submitted these out to people, there were 4 groups that we sent information to get bids from. Southwest Plumbing, Scholson's, Mountain Land, and Turf Equipment. And Turf Equipment and Mountain Land were the only 2 that submitted bids for the wire. I don't know how come that was, but that was what they did. And Turf Equipment came in with the lowest one at $71,345.20. So we would suggest that we go with that item as well.
And are both of these bids within the framework of the budget?
They are, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, we got this one on consent.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 6, consider disposal of city property.
Good evening, Mike Phillips with the fire department. We're looking to dispose of 12 SCBAs, the self-contained breathing apparatus, and the 31 bottles that go with those. And along with that, a bunch of turnouts that are old and expired and tattered. In the past, we've donated them to local fire departments. We're asking for permission to do that again. In the past, Tyler's created a document that we've given them saying, hey, we're giving you old expired gear.
No liability.
No
on our
liability
part.
on Cedar City.
And this feathers into agenda item 8.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Okay.
Comments, questions?
No.
Good with this on consent?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Item number 7, consider approval of wildland interface zoning.
Mike Phillips with the fire department. I'll start this for Mike Schertz, give some background on it. So in 2012, after a record-breaking fire season, the governor said, hey, we need to figure out how to fight wildfires and deal with wildfires differently in the state of Utah. And so the goals of that catastrophic wildfire reduction strategy were to create resilient landscapes, create fire adaptive communities, and then have a strong and effective local wildfire response. During that time, the counties were allowed to participate in a suppression fund where they paid a premium. And then once they paid the premium, the state would pick up the cost of the large fires. But municipalities weren't allowed to be part of that program. So in 2016, Senate Bill 122, this wildfire policy updates allowed us to join into that new system. But they also dropped back the paying for it for the counties and put the counties and the cities into the same system. And in that system, we have to provide prevention, mitigation, and then suppression efforts. And in turn, they pay for the large costs of wildland fires. So we've signed into that cooperative agreement, and we're part of that CAT Fire program. Part of that program is to do our community wildfire protection plan, which we're a little behind on doing it. One of those big key components of that is creating a wildland urban interface map. And that mapping, I'll turn over to Chief Schertz to talk to you about it.
What's cool about this? They come up with this map. And
Mike Schertz with the fire department. So as Chief Phillips mentioned, this map that we've created, or this zone, is one component of that community wildfire prevention plan that we've been working on. It's a key component because we need to delineate what those areas are within our city so that we can then mitigate risk in those areas. So a little bit of background on the map, since that's been my primary focus in this project. We took the data that the state used, essentially the same data that they used to determine what our participation commitment was, and that was a risk analysis that they did. They have a portal. I think we mentioned it in the write-up. It's the URAP portal, and it essentially takes about 40 layers of data.
URAP stands for?
Sorry, acronym. The Utah Wildfire Risk Assessment Portal.
Okay, thanks.
And just interestingly enough, if you want to plug your address in to that public side of that portal, you can get a snapshot of what the wildfire risk is on any property in the state. So we did that for Cedar City, and we brought that data to staff, and that data took into account everything from historical fire occurrence to slope and weather and how many red flag days that we had in that area. We brought all of that data in a previous version of this to staff, and it was very pixelated and a little bit confusing. So for example, in one subdivision, you might have had 3 or 4 different colors that indicated different levels of risk in that area. Our approach was to take that data and then use our experience, and we went out and did some reconnaissance and looked at the areas and looked at actual fire occurrence in some of those areas and got it down to what you see now, which is the city limits, and these are subdivisions that are currently already platted, and we didn't want to include those for obvious reasons. We didn't want to go lay this map over the top of an existing subdivision and then apply, some subsequent mitigation rules to that area. So we excluded those areas. So what you see in red is what we have landed on as far as where our wildland urban interface exists within Cedar City limits. So what we're proposing today is just that we adopt this map. It's very similar to a flood zone map or the subsidence area soils map that we have. So we just want to get the map in place, and then we'll move forward with some code stuff in that area.
So if a developer wants to develop a subdivision in that, what's going to be the costs they incur, you think, above and beyond what they would have?
I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of additional cost. There are some mitigation efforts that will have to be taken place, and we haven't quite got that nailed down with staff. We're going to come in with the code portion of it. We wanted to get the map in place, and then we'll bring the code part of it that applies to that area and come through the process again through sketch and planning commission and back to the council with that. What we're thinking to do is just apply the same code that the county currently has in place, the state version of the wildland urban interface code. Our current subdivision ordinances already take care of water supply and street width and access. So the other components of that WUI code are some vegetation management stuff, so some thinning, some mitigation of the fuels, and then some restrictions on things like wood shake shingle roofs and combustible decks on the outside of houses. Requires in some cases that the gable end vents be screened off so that you can't get an ember into that, or we can't have an ember that lands in the gutters and things like that. So we haven't at least determined what the additional costs would be, but there may be some.
So let's just take this development that Joel just presented, where he wants to U-shaped road, leave vegetation alone, leave it more natural. How does that affect him?
So this would affect him. In fact, I think that subdivision lands right in here somewhere. Maybe I'm not looking at that right. I'm not. Where is it? Anyway. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
This area right here. Sorry.
Okay.
So what the WUI code in essence says is that if you want to leave all of the vegetation in and not create a good defensible space around the house, and you're in that high risk area, then it shifts the protection or the mitigation over to the structure. So it would require more non-combustible rated walls, things like that. One common misconception in the WUI code is that we want everything completely cleared out and cut. Typically, you can accomplish a lot to reduce the risk just by thinning, get the crown spacing out to about 10 feet, get some of the natural vegetation out away from the house. So
Defensible space.
it's defensible space stuff. Yep.
So would it, I mean, have you worked with the Home Builders Association on this and talked to them about it?
We did. So we took this through staff, and then we've taken this to the home builders and presented this to them. They liked the idea of just having a single code. The state version of the WUI code is already adopted in the county, and this would give them one code to work with. So we wouldn't be doing something different than the county's already doing if we came in with kind of a mixture of what we want to do here. So
they seemed agreeable to what you're doing.
They seemed agreeable to it. Yeah. In fact, in the meeting where we presented it, there were some folks from the insurance industry, and they brought up the fact that, and I've got a couple of more slides, I'll talk about one other issue, but they brought up the fact that because of all of the stuff that happened in California the last couple of years and the real catastrophic losses that they had incurred, that they were very much in favor of something like this. It helped them to look at a property and determine risk in some kind of a substantive way. So
if this is much like the flood control you talked about a few minutes ago, is there ability once a subdivision comes into a certain area and they meet certain criteria, can it change?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we look at this, we may have areas that are red now, but if a developer came in and leveled it out and cleared all the vegetation off and put in the roads and the water systems that we already require, then there would be very little additional work that they would have to do to build in that area.
So it has the flexibility to move as the city
does.
grows and changes.
That's the nice thing about the code and the map, the way that we propose that we set it up is we've just got another tool that we can assess the risk in those areas.
Right.
But if they take care of, like I say, if they take care of the vegetation and they're not on a steep slope and they're not in a box canyon and things like that, we can look at it and do a risk assessment. And then all of the other requirements may just fall off. So.
Okay.
So one other thing of interest, Kit, if you could open the two Rocky Mountain power maps. So this hasn't been public for very long, but a couple of months ago, Chief Phillips was invited to attend some meetings that Rocky Mountain Power did. And so two totally different groups studying this. We studied it in Rocky Mountain Power in response to what happened in Paradise, California, has done a risk assessment. And what this map represents is you can see Cedar City here in the blue. This is an area that they've indicated that they would shut off the power if conditions were such that the fire risk was too high, just to avoid their equipment sparking a fire or starting a fire. And if you look at all this red, it lines up pretty well with what, in fact, if you open the next map, Kit, orange, is it orange? There's one more Rocky Mountain Power map if you could open that one. It's a little closer view.
Go to your little file folder.
But anyway, two completely different methodologies and way of looking at the problem. And it was interesting to us that Rocky Mountain Power said, here's where we think the greatest risk is around Cedar City. This blue line represents Cedar City's boundaries. And this is the area of highest impact to their utility. And it lines up pretty well with what we determined as being our wildland urban interface area. So our goals aligned there, and we at least felt like it validated our data. So
just a little note on the Rocky Mountain Power Program. They activated this 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I heard.
And they were evaluating whether or not to shut that area down. They were really kind to work with Cedar City. They know we have a few public works items in that area, mostly lift stations and water infrastructure. They offered to help us find backup power systems if it was an extended outage. So they were really helpful to us through that process. They didn't have to activate it. That was nice. They didn't have to shut anybody off.
Are there any additional comments or questions?
No, I just know you've been working on this for a great deal of time, and
We have.
congratulations for getting to this point in the process.
Thank you. And we thought maybe we would bring the map and the code in together, but we felt that it was a little easier to chew and digest, maybe the map and get the zone established and then follow it, right through the process the same way with the code stuff that we'd like to propose. And we'll take that back to the home builders and go through that process. So,
Wonderful. This will go on the action because we'll do it through an ordinance.
thank you.
Okay. Item number 8, consider accepting FEMA assistance to firefighter grant in the amount of $684,300.
Mike Phillips with the fire department again. So as noted before, our self-contained breathing apparatus SCBA's are beginning to expire. Over the last few years, we've had this as a budget discussion item. It's been on our capital acquisition plan since budget 16-17. We knew this day was coming. So what we've done in the past, we've just pushed back that budget item, trying to apply for a grant. We applied 2 years ago. We were turned down. We asked for a smaller amount. This last year, we asked for a lot more money, and they awarded us the bigger amount, which is a good thing. So the grant is for $684,300. This will buy 99 SCBA's. Now this will cover all of Iron County and New Harmony Fire Department. So this is a region-wide grant.
So is the lesson there to ask for more money and you'll get it?
I don't think the mayor is gonna. She's giving me
You
that
can
look.
ask the feds for more money.
I just can't ask you guys for more money. Well, I'm getting to that point here in a second anyway. So out of those 99 SCBA's, we get 34 of them, about $245,600. The federal share of that will be $208,080. And our match that I'm asking extra for is the $37,570. So yeah, I'm kind of asking for a little bit.
So in order for us to accept this grant, we have to do the match part.
So if we don't come up with 37,570, you lose 245,000 potential, or 208,000, whatever the difference is. Yeah.
But you guys will have to come up with later.
Yeah.
So the mayor asked me to talk with all of our partners. I've talked with all the fire departments in the county, and they're all still in. They think this is a great thing.
Well, it's something we need. We have to have it.
All right. Any other comments, questions? Put this on consent.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Item number 9, public hearing to consider amending the city's ordinance that defines site obscuring fences.
Yeah, a month or so ago, when we brought you our updates on our engineering standards, we included some standards in there for site obscuring fence. And those 3 standards was a, let's see, what is it? Site obscuring fence shall be constructed to manufacturer specifications, limited to one of the following options, either a masonry block wall, a solid composite material, is manufactured by Fiberon or an approved eco, and then the last one was a chain link fence that meets the minimum specification, is manufactured by Privacy Link or an approved equal, which is a type of fence that is actually 98% privacy factor. So those are the 3 fences that we're going to allow to be used for site obscuring fence in our ordinance. And there's several situations where the site obscuring fence is required.
So I'll kind of go through what this definition would, how it would work out with all the other city ordinances that we have. So previously it was defined as a type board fence or masonry wall or something of comparable material. So as Kit said, it would be expanding the definition to masonry, solid composite, or slatted chain link. So just to go through a few of the uses where that requires a site obscuring fence. So in the highway services zone, if you're going to use property to store debris or waste material, our ordinance says you have to put in a site obscuring fence. So that would just give the owners of that property that flexibility to choose one of the three. In the INM 1 zone, again, there's a section that deals with storage. That would have to have a site obscuring fence. If you had a junkyard or a scrap yard, again, that requires a site obscuring fence, so you'd be able to choose one of the three options there. If you put in a solar property and used it for solar generation, what is being proposed is a 98% site obscuring fence. I wasn't at the planning commission meeting. I had to be gone that night, but my suggestion would just be saying a site obscuring fence, because the definition already includes a 98%. Now, if we go down to some of the supplemental regulations, so a couple changes here. So if a commercial or industrial development bordered a residential property, the ordinance says a 6-foot high site obscuring masonry fence. So we're not wanting to give a developer the option of the three here. It would have to be masonry.
Okay.
The second part of this ordinance says it's kind of the flip. If there's a residential that goes in next to commercial or industrial, what the ordinance currently says is just a site obscuring fence. So we want to change that to say exactly what it applies for the commercial owner, which would be a site obscuring masonry fence. So that's going to be the same, whoever goes in first. Apartments that have 4 or more dwelling units that have a common lot line with less dense residential purposes would have a site obscuring fence. Again, they could choose one of the three. The next section that we're wanting to change deals with some of the authority of the planning commission. We gave them
I'm sorry, was that four apartments or more you said?
Yeah, 4 units or more.
4 more, okay.
So the planning commission currently has the ability to take requests to deviate from what a site obscuring fence is. As staff and the planning commission agreed, we just want that spelled out in the ordinance. We don't want people coming and trying to do something a little different. So we suggested striking all that language, and the planning commission gave that a positive recommendation. If a parking lot is put in that contains 5 or more vehicles, that can't be within 10 feet of a residence, a school, or a hospital, unless what the ordinance currently says is there's a masonry wall or hedge, which I find interesting. I don't know what counts as a hedge. If you plant the seeds, then you got your hedge going. I mean, I don't know. But what we suggested is striking that and just putting in site obscuring fence. So this is really, the whole point of this is to make it a little more uniform. Mobile home parks require a site obscuring fence. So again, that would give the developer the opportunity to choose between the three. Now,
Excuse me, can I ask a question on that? If the mobile home park is already in existence and they have, say, a board fence, are they now going to be required to change it over, or?
No, this would be from new developments going in from the time it's passed.
Thank you.
With subdivisions, the ordinance currently requires a site obscuring masonry fence. The planning commission didn't feel comfortable giving a developer the ability to put in chain link around a PUD. So what they're suggesting is it's going to be a site obscuring masonry or composite fence. So it just eliminates that ability for the slatted chain link. A site obscuring fence is required around waste receptacles in subdivisions and the storage of recreational vehicles in PUDs. And then the last thing, we require a site obscuring fence if the lot has the back of the lot is on a public street. So one that goes through the entire block. So that would require a side obscuring fence, which would give the owner or the developer the ability to choose one of those three options.
That's for a private residence as well.
Yep.
So I'm interested to know, we had 100% on there before of side obstructing. Now it's 98%. Why the change? And how do you tell if something's 98% side obstructing? Do you go up and put your little eye through it and say, oh,
That's a measurement that the manufacturer.
I see. So it comes from the manufacturer.
I think one thing we realize is unless it's block wall, there's really nothing that's 100%.
Right. Right.
Mayor, may I address this for one moment?
As soon as we get to the public hearing.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other
Not at the moment. I don't have any other questions.
comments, questions from? Okay, then we will open the public hearing on this. That's you.
Get your name.
Thank you. Tom Jett, good evening. Thanks to Doug for reminding me. There's three questions that I have with regard to this. Why 6 feet? Why not 8 feet? Because in many situations, 6 feet just doesn't even cover a window. In a lot of people still look right across the lane, right across the way when they're in it. If their house is up 2 feet off the ground and the fence is, of course, 2 feet, the ground around them is 2 feet lower, effectively they have a 4-foot obstruction to see.
I always measure from the high side.
The highest elevation of the lot, not of the built structure that's in there.
The high side of the fence.
The high side of the fence, yes, thank you. That's correct. But I think we should consider in some of these situations raising the height in some of these areas, such as junkyards or scrap yards or that type of stuff, to allow them to put a higher fence in. Number two, Tyler made mention of a commercial to a less dense, I think that's the term, less dense property. Now, it shouldn't, why, how do we calculate that? That is so arbitrary. If they're both in a commercial zone, example, we have a block and and half that block is commercial, zoned commercial, and we have homes that are still in there, but someone wants to build a development next to that home. I think we're better off saying up against a different zone versus a different use of the property. And I know the building department, in the past at least, when Larry Palmer was here, struggled with how to make that argument.
So my understanding, it's done by zone. So it says less dense residential purposes.
Okay.
But
well, we
correct
might
me if I'm wrong, kid, but it's essentially it's done by zone.
Okay, because in the past, it was interpreted by the building department when Larry Palmer was here as it didn't have to be a change in zone. It only had to be if the structure next to it was a less dense structure to your eightplex, and that's a duplex next to it. He said, well, you need to have the wall. And this is not bashing on Larry. This is just, I'm just giving you some institutional knowledge. So if we could clarify that word to a lesser zone.
Well, if the whole intent is to make this clearer, we want to make sure it's very clear.
Yes.
That's a good question. And it's one we should look at.
Yes.
We probably still have some residential uses in land that's zoned commercial. I don't know if we want to totally
But wouldn't
say,
this be for any new? I mean, this is all new stuff, right? I mean, if the home's already there, it's there.
so it's not uncommon to have somebody purchase property, raise whatever's on it, and build something new. For instance, and I'm not calling this out in a negative fashion,
Right.
but on 200 South, on the southeast corner of the intersection there, the law firm that built their building there. There's one residential unit right next to it. When the law firm was building their building, they were unable to come to terms to purchase that residential property. So they just built next to it. If we go purely by zone, they wouldn't have had to put a wall in between the larger commercial use and that single family home. So I think there's some areas where if we just go purely by zone, we might not be happy with a result later.
Well, I guess that we could probably try to clarify it a little more narrow in exactly what what is considered lesser or denser, that type of thing.
It would be very easy to say, if you put a commercial in next to a residential zone or use.
I think that would probably be much clearer. Yeah, I think that would be spot on clear. And then the third item that I brought up is historically our cities try to stay out of the business of PUDs in the city, and what takes place with their CCNRs and their and the rules of that subdivision. Maybe I misinterpret or misunderstood, but it's what I heard was requiring PUDs to have fenced-in area for motorhome storage or RV storage, or
currently the ordinance requires that.
And does it say RV storage or motorhome storage or
Storage of recreational vehicles.
recreational? I guess I don't quite understand, and I do not live in a PUD, but I'm not quite sure I understand why the city's getting into the rules of the PUD. Because we've tried to stay away from the rules, getting into that, because we don't want to have any say in those rules.
Right. So, we're already in that. We're not trying to get in it.
We might wish to remove it then. I'm not bashing on you, Tyler.
Oh, I know. I'm just making sure it's clear. I'm not suggesting this is new.
And I kind of agree. I mean, isn't that similar to getting involved with CCNRs in an HOA?
Well, we set some minimum development standards for normal subdivisions.
Thank you.
And we set minimum development standards for PUDs as well. My recollection is the walls around the RV storage was a compromise that came around probably 15 years ago or more. But that's the last time we had a major overhaul of that PUD ordinance.
And the ordinance says that the storage of these recreational vehicles has to be in excess of 560 square feet to require the fence. So it's just for these bigger storage.
Well, and don't we have some PUDs right in the middle of residential neighborhoods? And so we
400 North, some PUDs.
And not all of them have. So not all of them have the recreational vehicle storage component. Some PDs do.
It's a
Some don't.
classic example it does.
But I think you have to think about the neighborhoods that live around those.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, we'll start over on this. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council during the public hearing?
True.
Oh,
So if it's okay,
Not yet.
You haven't seen anything yet, Thomas.
give me a break.
so I'll get with Drew Jackson to talk about that difference between residential purpose or zone. See if we can come up with some language in the next week that might help everyone out.
Was a spot on suggestion when he said how he said it.
I have read through this, but I need to read through it again and digest it all. I just want to make sure in its clarity, we are not diluting what we need to be doing in terms of side obstruction.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying we are. I just want to make sure of that.
right. So some of those uses, like the
I think 98%
highway
would be the
services
8-inch gap
or
between the slabs. Right.
solar panels,
That's right.
motor home parks. I mean, we'll be giving them the option of doing chain link, which they didn't have before. Or
Well, but they had board fence before. I mean, I know several of them that have that right now, and they're warped and messed up and don't look good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily diluting, but it's giving them just additional options, which some people would be fine with and others wouldn't. Just depends on your point of view.
Sure.
So, and what discussion was had on the height of the fences in regards, like to Tom's question, where in the proposed material there, everything is 6 feet with the exception of a solar farm is allowed 8-foot high fence. Why that as opposed to say a wrecking yard or whatever? Was there any discussion on?
Yeah, we didn't have any discussion on height bringing these changes through, but I don't know.
I think it's a good question.
When the ordinance was written, I wasn't around, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, our city ordinance used to be 8 feet citywide till how many years ago, Paul?
I can't remember.
Did that get changed?
I know it says
Yeah.
6 foot now.
Yeah, it was changed to 6 foot. Yeah, I just wondered. So I saw that in there.
Tom Jett. Many of you don't know me here.
Just get on with it, Tom.
I spoke with York Jones several years ago before his early passing, and York was kind of a man that had a great deal of knowledge, just immense knowledge. And I spoke to York Jones about fences once, asking him for history and so forth. And he told me the history in Cedar City was there were some people that didn't like their neighbors. So they built these very tall fences, almost blocking the sun in the view of the mountains. And just because they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I think at that particular time was when the wall was, pushed down to avoid creating enemies and blocking daylight for some of the neighbors. That was York Jones's recollection on where this came from.
Yeah, but I think things like maybe wrecking yards and places like that is totally different than a residential.
And I would not suggest we do this in residential much over 6 feet. I think that's fine, but I think wrecking yards and so forth should have the option of a taller in industrial areas or that type of thing. And so these are just thoughts that, with time we change, and with society we change. No one even goes in their yard anymore. They just watch it on the internet. So
not true. Not true.
So, but just a thought. Okay. Thank you.
It's a good question, though. The height is a good question.
Okay. Any other public comments? No? We'll close the public hearing. Are there any other council comments? Because we'll move this on to the action agenda.
Yeah, but we should look at some of those heights. I'd like to we can have discussion and have it on the action, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on the action no matter what, because it's an ordinance.
Very good.
Okay, item number 10, consider the acceptance of a property donation to the city's animal shelter.
So the city received a letter, it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Came from a individual in California. His name's Jerry Chishamanian, I believe is how you pronounce it. Jerry's the trustee on the will of a Victoria Adelbert, who passed away in 2017. Miss Adelbert donated a piece of property that she has out in Burl through her will for Jerry to find a animal shelter, animal care facility to donate it to. So Jerry donated it to the city. So this property, Kit's going to pull it up on the county's GIS map. It's located in the Burl town site. It's about 0.16 acres. According to the county's website, its value is approximately $500, and it has $16.06 owing in back taxes.
I was hoping it was $1 million bequest or something like that when I saw this on the agenda. I got so excited. Yeah.
There could be gold.
But to pay $1,016
Yeah, it might-
for $500 worth of value doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But
If the city were to accept it, we'd have to pay closing costs, transfer title, and could far exceed its value.
I will pay those costs for the city if we take that land, because that was her wish.
That's very kind.
That is kind.
And then what would we do with the property once we had it as a gift?
Well,
could be a remote site for horses, cows, or pigs.
Chickens.
We may
0.16 acres. Straight chicken.
we may one day have a buyer. The city could dispose of it then through the proper process.
I think you should research that gold thing.
Probably not a farm. Yeah, I just counted.
I'm kind of like you, darn it.
1,000 for $500.
Yeah. I got so excited when I saw it there. And then
Well,
read the
I was
materials
hoping
and
it
I
was
went,
missing about 3 or 4 zeros, you know.
even $5,000 or something.
So do you have the account number?
$500 value.
Give me that.
I tried to find it. I could not find it.
It's right there. It's 0177
Right there.
094. There it is.
How come I could
Can you zoom out a little bit?
Zoom out so we can see where it is.
Looks the
exact same.
That
Yeah.
dot, it's one of the dots on there. I think it's a tree.
Oh, the red barn.
That's one neighbor.
Yeah. Just close that little icon. There you go. Close the icon.
Then they sold off the water.
Okay. So.
I don't know where that is in relationship to anything.
Okay,
Okay, here we go. There's 56.
56.
Where's Burl Junction?
Can you keep zooming out? Okay.
There's a whole bunch of these out there.
Yeah. Tons of them.
I'm sure.
They're just
Issues.
Please close the.
I'm not sure this is a
The
gift we
window
want to
that-
accept.
Yeah, I hate to look a gift horse in the mouth. But,
there's a name of these
Just off of Highway
pieces
56
that
there.
Homestead it or something?
they used for like almost like an easement, and they figured out they don't need them anymore. So they're abandoning them. Yeah. I don't know that you could even get $500.
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
So is there a direction from the council?
Well, this is a work meeting.
Yeah, I was just
so
wondering if there's.
I
Okay.
I would rather have Tom's $1,000 for something else.
Why don't we put this on the action agenda?
Okay.
Okay.
I can probably guess what's happened is back when the MX missile sites were being developed back in the
That's what that's from.
60s, that's people out of staters were buying land out there like crazy, speculating that the government was going to put in the MX missile sites. And then it never did come to fruition. And they've tried to, marking them off and some, I've listed 20-acre parcels out there and sold them for $5,000 for 20 acres. So
None of them have any water rights.
yeah, and they don't have any water rights with them. So it's pretty tough.
Right.
But yeah.
So we'll have that on the action for next week. All right. Item number 11, a review bids for the Veteran Cemetery Street Improvement Project, 1600 North and VA Way.
Okay, we don't have those bids that are coming in tomorrow, so we'll send you out a staff information sheet on the results of those bids, and then they'll be on the agenda on the next city council meeting.
This will go on the action agenda.
Action. Okay. So can I move to adjourn this meeting? I am moving to adjourn.
So okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
One job and I can't.
It's not a question.
Didn't mean to be so timid, but
Because it could be a question. It doesn't need to be.
There was anyone else?
oh dear. Okay.
My reality last night.
That would be a little, that would be
What's your
fitting.
thoughts on this after Joe presented more information?
It sounded like I was pretty more advocate for this. I'll take it back. I'll take,
On the subdivision out there on the Dick Road, Joel.
I don't know. It was a better presentation than it was for the planning commission.
going to residential.
There's no guarantees on.
Yeah, the problem is, we can talk all day long and there aren't any guarantees.
Commercial, industrial.
And when you look at it in the context of everything else happening, that's what probably drove me to vote.
Yeah, so the less dense.
Was that you got R3 in the midst of all of the other R1,
I kind of agree with him, but why would they cut their nose off to spite their face, ruin their property value? And if somebody inherited, even if he died, it seems like they'd think the same, but.
I think so.
What do you think?
But the less dense the large.
Yeah.
Right, I agree.
Apartment is not, we don't care whether it's less dense or not. If it's commercial or residential, decide it's cool.
Yeah, and we ended up with.
That's what happened, that's what we ended up with.
That's what happened. We ended up
And that
with.
was, how many years ago? It's like 25 years ago. So you have no guarantees.
We had that guy that came in, that got approved on the other side of the freeway by the old Coleman building, remember? And his own